So I wanted to do kind of a second impressions video of the Performer front wheel drive almost low racer, having put more than 100 miles on it and done a little bit of work on it. One of the first things I did actually that I'm not sure that this was just not put together quite right by the shop, but there are a couple of little metal keepers here that hold these chain tubes, and when I got it, they were on the other side of the metal that holds this second idler setup here, and so they actually were ticking against this aluminum idler wheel all the time, and that drove me nuts pretty quickly. I ended up taking off the whole assembly, and it was a pretty easy matter to stick them behind here. However, this idler assembly, I'm not sure if mine is correct from the factory or not. It actually, you can see here, it has play in it, which I don't think it should, and I put a spacer back here to try and minimize that play, and that worked. And I actually had to take a spacer. This is I think the axle inside here was 12 millimeters, and I had a spacer that was only 10, so I machined it out to 12 millimeters, and it fits pretty well. Now in practice, this thing spins pretty freely and does not seem to contact the keeper, so I'm not that worried about it. But the inside of this idler wheel, when I was taking a look at it, it didn't look all that well made, and I'm not sure what will happen when I need to finally pull the cartridge bearing that is inside there that runs it. So I may have to get a hold of the folks who sold it to me and have them ask Performer. Otherwise, the drivetrain is actually pretty darn quiet. You'll need to make sure that your limit screws are set pretty well up here. When I got it from the shop, and the first time I shifted up to the big ring under power, it threw it right over the side, even though it seemed like it was lined up. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work there. Otherwise, the front wheel drive has been pretty good. The other issue I had at the end of my, well, actually the last sort of third of the Century ride that I did a couple of days ago, was, I think, and I hope, in the hinge. The hinge was pretty squeaky. It would drive you crazy, and if I can't get this hinge to be quiet, I'm going to have some a talk with the folks who sold the bike, because it's no good if it's going to squeak like it was squeaking every single pedal stroke or bump. It was going that would drive you nuts. So what I did is I opened it up, I greased every single flat surface I could get. I was pretty sure that actually all the contact was happening down here. There was kind of a black rub mark down there. I'm guessing that's where it was coming from, but just to be safe, I greased all the flat surfaces with good grease, and then I put silicone spray lube into the places that were not easily accessible, and that seems to have solved the problem. Hopefully it solves it for a long, for a few hundred miles at a time. The other issue that you may have with this bike will be illustrated by the fact that I'm probably not going to start riding it here at the bottom of the driveway. And that's not because I can't handle a laid-back low racer with tiller steering from a standing start at the bottom of a little incline. It's because front-wheel drive will slip on you, and especially if it's wet. Now, I might be able to get up here. I'll give it a try. But I knew this going in, so this is not, a big complaint, because I'm getting what I knew I was getting. But if you have little short, sharp climbs that you can't carry any momentum into, you may slip on those, especially if they're wet. So just keep that in mind. I would say anytime I've had this thing above, say, a 10 to 12% grade, I've started to get some slipping from the front wheel. So let's see what happens here. I'm guessing the grade at the top of that is about 13-14%. Let's see what happens here. It's nice and dry, at least right now. I think that we're going to go up just fine here. So we're doing okay here. That's good. Not a single slip. There's another hill down here. There's another little tiny section of trail. that is usually wet even on dry days and often a little mossy, and that one I slip a little bit more. So it's not a huge problem, but if you live somewhere where you're doing a lot of little short, sharp climbs, it's something you'd want to be aware of. Rear-wheel drive is going to do a lot better for you. Hello. So, in general, I really like the handling on this. The tiller is too long for me, and I'm probably going to shorten the width of the bars, cut them off just with a hacksaw. But see, we can see it's nice and wet down here, so when we come back, we'll probably get the slipping. So, it's been raining a lot. There's a lot of water down here. The other thing is, these are some generic tire, and I'm not all that familiar with their grip, so if I were on a pair of gator skins or something, I would have a little more faith in the grip. I'm not even sure what all tires are available, because of course this thing runs 451s, which is an oddball size, although you can get a pair of I think they were Kenda Small Block 8 gravel tires. You would have to grind out the fork to make enough space, but there's plenty of metal there to take away. So if I were going to ride this anywhere where I would be on the trail on gravel once in a while, I might consider putting a pair of those on. They would, they're not going to be the fastest tire around, but they would help, especially on slight inclines in the gravel, because of course with front wheel drive, you start getting into gravel, you are going to slip all the time as soon as you go up a hill, even a small hill. Yeah, we got Toto up here. So, I find that on my cat trike, where I have almost 60% of my weight on the back wheel, that as soon as I'm going up gravel, I start getting a lot of slipping with a smooth tire. So, you might be able to see, I'm putting no work into this bike at all on this flat trail, and it's going 15 miles an hour like nothing. So it is I have the seat all the way back, and it is just a pretty darn comfy, pretty quick bike. I got it for the folding option, so I thought maybe I can throw it in a duffel bag, get it on an airplane. It's not so expensive. If they ding it up a little bit, it's not the end of the world. I'll do some experimenting with that later. But also, if I head out to Ragbri, you want to head out to Ragbri, you're supposed to box your bike with certain teams, or there might not be easy ways to carry it on team equipment, or you just may not have a bike rack on one of your cars, like on my Honda. Well, I can throw this thing in the trunk of that Honda if I want, and that's pretty handy, especially for a bike that really comes in about 26, 27 pounds. That's like the same weight as my Nocom, maybe a little more. My Volet is about 25 pounds, so it's right in the ballpark with a fairly light recumbent with some pretty good performance. So I think in terms of what you get, you're not making a lot of bad compromises here. I haven't heard any of the creaking from the... I'm hearing no creaking from the frame hinge at all. So I'm guessing that's what it was. If I can keep that thing quiet with a little bit of grease, that's good enough for me. On a longer tour, you can bring a little Ziploc bag of grease, open it up every couple of days and put a dab where you need it, and be good. So that is good news. That makes me happy. See, now I'm going 18 and I'm almost 19. I'm barely moving. And by the way, I calibrated that computer pretty carefully. I got a rollout on it that wasn't quite right. I adjusted it in the middle of my ride, or early in my ride last week. So it was dead on with the averages I was getting from GPS as well as the mile markers. So these speeds are pretty close to correct. Looks like it dried up down here a little. We'll go do a U-turn up here by the baseball field. Came out here to make the thing slip on the uphill if we could. Getting a lot of ticking. I don't think that's the frame. I think it's something else. But anyway, we're gonna... Alright, now we're gonna see if we can keep traction here. This is wet and mossy. Oh, I'm slipping. Hear that? Not too bad, but... Oop, that one almost got me. Definitely slipping. So, definitely losing traction. That's not even that steep a grade, but as soon as it's wet, front wheel drive, with only 40% or less of your weight on that front wheel, which is what I'm guessing this has, you are going to slip. So this is similar grade. I can get it to slip, but only if I really try to snap the pedals. So there you go. If it's wet, you're going to need to gingerly pedal. You may even want to put, what I may do is put a cassette with a slightly big ring on it so that I can, biggest cog, so that I can spin a little bit more slowly. Alright, let's see if we get that clicking sound here. Make a quick lap here, up and around the block. Out in the sun. Click, click. Still getting a lot of clickety stuff out of this now. Still sounds to me like it's the frame. There's a biker blowing a stop sign, making everybody happy, right? All right. Remember to lift your inside foot up on these low ones. That's a no-com instinct. When you're turning a turn on the no-com, you will knock your heel in the dirt. So, pretty good. A little bit of clicking, which may or may not be from the hinge still. I'll try and track that down and report back on it later. And yeah, you might have seen that when I was moving down just that little hill back there. I got up to 28 pretty quickly. So, a decent bike. If you've got already a Lowracer, similar one, probably no need to get this one unless you want the fold and the compactness. But if you don't have one like this, you're looking for kind of a cheapo to have it work or something, this seems like a pretty good option, so long as we can track down the noise from the hinge or wherever it is. Without weight on here, I bet I can't. Doesn't seem to be coming from there. Possibly still the hinge. I'll try to report back.